Okay. So, good evening, Brighton families. I'm Betsy Paddock, administrator for the Aspire program, and on behalf of the district and the PTSA, I'm happy to be here to welcome you to the third presentation in this year's Parent University series. As I mentioned in other sessions, Parent University was created to address issues that were identified in the 2024 Community Spring Thought Exchange Survey. Tonight's presentation will focus on relationships as they change over the K-12 experience as students go through the different phases of child and adolescent development. I'm honored to introduce our speaker for tonight's presentation, Dr. Melissa Heatley. Dr. Heatley is a licensed clinical psychologist and assistant professor at University of Rochester Medicine with specialty in integrated mental health services for children and families. Dr. Heatley directs UR Supporting Our Students, a comprehensive school mental health initiative at the University of Rochester's School of Medicine. URSOS provides school-based behavioral health services, consultation, and training to youth, parents, and educators across the Greater Rochester region. Dr. Heatley's work includes the dissemination, implementation, and program evaluation of comprehensive school mental health systems, mental health training for educators and community members, and increasing access to evidence-based mental health for youth and families. Her current projects focus on evaluating the effectiveness of school-based mental health interventions delivered in disadvantaged and underserviced communities, on associations between parent and teacher-child relationships, and engagement motivation in elementary school, and on policy issues affecting children's mental health. Tonight, Dr. Heatley will offer insights and practical advice to parents on how to better understand student relationships during the K-12 experience and how to talk to children about this topic. So we are so thankful to have Dr. Heatley with us tonight. And I know that she is presenting from out of town, has taken time out of her busy schedule to be with us. But without further ado, I'm going to welcome Dr. Melissa Heatley.
Hi, thanks so much for that lovely introduction. I'm really looking forward to talking about this topic because it's a fun one. How do we foster healthy peer relationships in our young people? I think it's fun because I have a 7-year-old. I also have a 2-year-old, and seeing the journey as it unfolds in reality, while knowing kind of the child development milestones is really a gift. And I also really appreciate how parenting and child development does not always look like what it looks like on a PowerPoint slide. So I have this kind of messy paint blotch up here because I think it really illustrates what sometimes parenting feels like, and also what child development really actually is, which is a lot messier than anybody on a PowerPoint or training is gonna admit that it is. And so in that, we're going to talk about parent-child relationships and how children develop healthy friendships and peer relationships and what your role is in that development. And then we'll towards the end of our conversation talk about how to support healthy relationships throughout development, including navigating things like peer pressure and as kids get into their teen years, romance, and how to do that without going crazy, hopefully. So let's start at the end of adolescence, which is really not the end. You are parenting throughout your child's life, but at the end of high school, we're in adolescence, and it's a really, really critical phase. And it's critical for many different reasons. One, we have a lot of brain development happening rapidly in adolescence. You see that the limbic system is developing pretty quickly. This is kind of like the gas of your emotional car. So you got big feelings, you might be quick to anger, you might have lots of love in some cases, and the prefrontal cortex is the brakes of the brain, and it is the last thing to develop. And what we see is that these are kids who are kind of like all gas and no brakes, which is why they're going fast and loose and driving hard. And this is what child development is. It is uneven development of skills starting in infancy. But really, brain isn't fully developed until the early 20s for girls and women, and about 26 for boys and men. And so if you're sometimes like, well, why are you so good at this in certain areas, but not in others? Oftentimes it's due to uneven brain development. And as kids mature over time, they become more sophisticated thinkers. They get more self-control. But these are skills that are developing as the brain is developing and as they are practicing relationships. So in adolescence, we see a lot of developmentally appropriate behaviors like craving novelty and new experiences, seeking excitement through risky behaviors. Teenagers are really bad judgments. They have really bad judgment of what risk and consequence is. And so they really overestimate how safe things are and underestimate how risky things are. And they really want people to like them, especially their peers. And so they're really likely to do things that their peers are doing that are also kind of exciting. And that can lead to some challenges. And those challenges are also developmentally appropriate. A lot of big feelings, a lot of frustration, kids who are really annoyed with their parents. I've started getting some eye rolls from my 7-year-old, and that is also developmentally normal. But it can feel really disorienting when this kind of little kid grows up to be so exasperated with you. And they also are becoming these beautiful human beings that are autonomous, that have their own interests, and they're trying to all figure it out while their brain is developing. So what can we do to support this? Well, it really starts with you. So we have to take it back to the start and build a solid foundation starting in early childhood. So these are my babies. And the heart of a good, healthy relationship style starts with attachment to you as parents when your kids are babies and toddlers and children. I'm gonna show a quick video that I think really nicely describes the role of attachment in infancy on later mental health and physical health outcomes, and really describes how important these healthy attachment styles are for positive outcomes for our kids. Can you guys hear this? Oh, okay. Hold on. I'm wearing headphones. Give me a second. I have to share my sound. Betsy, I am not allowed to share my sound. Do you think you could make me a co-host?
I thought I did, but give me a
Oh,
second.
hold on. Video file, share. If I have to take this off, I will.
Okay, you are
Oh, you guys
co-host.
can't see my screen anymore. Well, this is weird. There's usually a button that allows me to share my sound, and it is not. Oh, there's a share sound. Okay. I'm sorry, guys. Think we would
Okay.
figure this out. All right, here we go. Let's try.
It's not possible to talk about health without including mental health.
It's estimated that about 20% or 1 in 5 Canadians experiences some sort of mental health problem at some point in their life.
Mental illness is not an individual's problem. It's actually considered a public health problem.
Mental illness affects everybody, either directly or indirectly. It affects us personally, it affects us in an economic sense.
The most recent estimate places the costs at around $51 billion per year, and this was back in 2003.
Intervention for mental health problems needs to start with prevention, and I think parenting is very important.
Over the past century, our approach to parenting and its perceived impact on children has dramatically changed. Children are just little adults and should be treated as such. Dr. Spock prescribes tough love to foster independence. Harlow discovers babies use mom for food, comfort, and security. Ainsworth classifies babies as secure, insecure, and disorganized.
Attachment in infancy is the bond or tie between an infant and their caregiver. This bond endures over time and space, and it is a primary means by which an infant downregulates stress. Babies do experience stress, despite popular belief to the contrary, and it's up to the caregiver to modulate that stress. Secure attachment involves for the infant a sense that she is loved and lovable, and it manifests in a good attachment exploration balance. The infant uses the caregiver as a secure base from which to go out and explore and to which to retreat under conditions of perceived threat. So the stressed infant approaches the caregiver responds, and the infant's stress dissipates. The infant's biology is very much attuned to the behavior of the parent, to the point where secure attachment evolves in a child with a parent who is consistently sensitive. An insensitive parent is actually causing the infant stress. Under conditions of chronic insensitivity, the infant is unable to suppress that biological response as the stressor itself dissipates.
If the stress response goes on too long or it's activated too often, our body begins to malfunction. And so that very physiological response that was built to protect us becomes toxic to our health.
What the literature has shown is that insecure attachment is linked to atypical cortisol secretion. Insecure babies more often have common colds, more often see their GPs or pediatricians, etc. Insecure attachment has been linked to all kinds of negative outcomes throughout the lifespan. It's been linked to depression, withdrawal, anxiety, aggression, and a host of physical disease outcomes. So we're beginning to think about attachment as a behavioral system that protects the biological system that's nested within it. Insecurity in infancy is very, very malleable. We know that very small changes in parenting lead to security. There are several ways that a parent can optimize their relationship with the child and reduce that child's stress level. First and foremost, a parent needs to be sensitive. That is, they need to respond to their infant's bids for affection in a timely, a warm, and a consistent manner. They need to scaffold the child. They need to protect the child from stressors that the child is too young to handle. They need to balance their own needs with those of their child. So they need to take the time that they need to recharge themselves. And they need to attend to the needs of the couple, the parental couple. A couple that is not satisfied with their relationship will not be able to parent as well as a couple that is satisfied with their relationship. And perhaps most of all, they need to enjoy their child and to express that both implicitly and explicitly. When a parent enjoys their child, the child knows that they are enjoyable. They can read it very well.
All right, and I said this, oh, there we go. Sorry, I'm trying to stop the video. There we go. I apologize. So I said this in the chat. This is out of Anxiety Canada, which does really wonderful work. And all of the patterns that we see in that video and in Canada, we see reflected in child development in general across cultures. And the key here is that we want children to be able to develop secure attachments with us so that they can then learn what a secure attachment looks like with others, with their peers, with romantic partners. And it starts at home and it starts in infancy. And our secure kids are able to ask for help when they need it. They can regulate their emotions. They have a healthy communication style. When they don't have this sense of security, we see kids who struggle to explore their environment and they look anxious. We see kids who are afraid of taking risks, and so they are avoidant. Or we see kids who have a combination of both of those things, and they're scared of rejection, but also difficult with intimacy, and they have low self-worth. And so the good news is that you can foster secure attachment throughout development, and you do not have to be a perfect parent in order to foster secure attachment. There's actually a movement in a really great book called The Good Enough Parenting and Good Enough Mothers. You just need to be good enough, respond consistently and warmly to your kids without having to do it every single moment of every single day. You need to be able to balance your needs with the needs of your child, but that doesn't mean that you never snap or never get frustrated. You need to make sure that you're scaffolding and protecting, but you can't protect the world from your child. You can't keep your child at home. You have to let them explore. And you have to, this is what's really important, enjoy your child and tell them how much you enjoy them. Now, this gets really tricky when you think about people's different parenting styles. So there are 4 really different parenting styles that we think about. What we're looking for that has been associated with with the best outcomes in kids are what we call authoritative parenting styles. These are styles that have parents who are flexible with their kids. We often see parents who negotiate outcomes with their kids. They offer limits, but also opportunities to explore. And we think of this sometimes as a democratic parenting style where the child has a voice, but they're not in control. And so you're really balancing limits and accommodation. We see problems sometimes when we have an authoritarian parenting style. We see this as we call this helicopter parenting or tiger parenting sometimes, or even lawnmower parenting, where you're taking down all of the barriers in front of our kids, and we're really on top of them to achieve or to perform. So these sometimes are people who are disciplinarians or struggle with flexibility. We also see permissive parenting, which might be parents who struggle with the balance between accommodation and accountability, more laissez-faire parenting styles. And then we also have cold parenting styles, more disengaged parenting, indifferent or neglectful. And we see challenging outcomes in each of these things. Authoritative parenting is all about balance, where we have unconditional love, warmth, and consistent discipline. We have this coupled with reasonable expectations and limits, especially around safety and well-being, where we are offering discipline and consequences when they're needed, but we also work with our kids to collaborate on solutions that might be helpful. We also recognize that our job is to raise our kids towards independence and guide them safely towards an adult state of complete autonomy. Eventually, we want them to move out of your house. And that can be a really, really hard thing. And one of the keys here is to set boundaries. Boundaries, while many kids may struggle with them, they offer a sense of security and expectation. If we know where the boundaries are, if we know what time to expect bedtime to happen, to expect curfew to happen, if we know that talking to your parents in a certain way is going to result in challenging outcomes, then that helps our kids understand what is expected of them and helps them feel safer. We also have to make sure that we are outlining our expectations for them so that they know what they need to do in order to earn rewards or earn privileges or be able to participate in enjoyable things. We want to promote healthy relationships as much as we can, but in order to do that, we need to treat them how we want them to treat other people. And these boundaries are not only applied to our parent-child relationship, our kids are going to apply those boundaries to their relationship with each other as well. So we think about loving limits when we're setting boundaries. What we want to do is we want to think about 4 key areas of loving limits. We want to express when we're setting a boundary, love. I love you. I am on your side. And some truth. I have some rules and expectations for your behavior. There is some inherent freedom in authoritative parenting. You can choose to respect or reject these rules, and some consequences for what happens if you reject these rules. So I love you. I am on your side. And in our household, I expect you to talk to me with polite language. And if you don't, here's what's going to happen if you reject those rules. You can choose to respect them or reject them. And when we are promoting autonomy, what we're trying to do is develop a sense of when kids understand the boundaries, they can also understand where their sense of autonomy is. So what we see as kids get older is that peer pressure goes up and parent pressure simultaneously goes down. If we're able to give kids a little bit more autonomy and let go of certain boundaries as development unfolds, that might mean they get to stay up a half an hour later when they're younger. It might mean that they get to choose what the family activity is for the weekend. It may be that they start to practice some independence in the family walks or go out with friends for the first time. Uh, Being able to practice autonomy allows them to learn where the boundaries are and test those boundaries a little bit while parent pressure is still high enough to resist it. And while peer pressure is still low enough to not be super tempting. So we want to give kids increasing amounts of autonomy early. And as kids get older, we know that teens can struggle with a lot of these things because these preteen and teenage relationships change during adolescence. But parents and teens need parent and family support just as much as they did when they were younger. Adolescence is a hard time because parent influence is going down and peer influence is going up. And so we need to make sure that our early development is really giving kids the opportunity to practice autonomy, practice setting boundaries and testing those boundaries before they become teenagers so that your family can be a secure emotional base when things kind of start to fall apart when they're teens. So how do we think about these friendships and peer relationships throughout development? Uh, Second to you, positive friendships are one of the most important parts of the journey into adulthood. They really help our kids learn really important social and emotional skills like sensitivity to other people's thoughts, their feelings, and their well-being. And friendships become more and more critical as kids are aging. So we're going to talk about what friendship looks like across development, and how this matures. And as we talk about it, I want you to not necessarily think of these age ranges as concrete boundaries. We see that kids will move from kind of area to area gradually. It's more of a spectrum of friendship development. And a kid who is 7 might display some aspects of one friendship style that is really mature, while also simultaneously having moments where they are showing some really immature friendship skills and styles. So I'm going to share these kind of friendship stages across development. And this is so that you can really see what is expected of that age and also know if things are kind of going sideways a little bit. So we're going to start with the little guys. Kids start to develop friendships or start to develop relationships with peers around 2 to 3. And when they're really little, we're really looking at just like parallel play. Somebody else is around you and you were both playing at the same time. It's really not a dyadic relationship. We start to see friendship developing in what we think of as more of a back and forth around ages 3 to 6. These are kids who say their friends are people that they are playing with right now. Oftentimes, our 3 to 6-year-olds are pretty egocentric. They struggle to see other people's perspectives, which is why they're always right. They will often think that she is only my friend if she wants to do the same thing as I'm doing. She's not my friend if she wants to do something different. And they may perceive rejection if their friend wants to go play with a different toy than they do. And so they're pretty concrete and they don't really understand other people's thoughts and feelings very well. Their friends are kids who are close to them, oftentimes physically. So they're neighbors, they're friends' kids, they're accessible, they sit at their table group. And friendship at this stage is really all about doing the same thing and having fun. It is simple in some ways because you just got to be near the other kids. But generally, kids tend to like each other at this age. So, how do you support developing friendship skills at this age? Really, it's around creating positive experiences with your child through shared play, initiating pretty simple interactions with you or with each other, encouraging inclusion of kids who might be different, and modeling friendly behavior. This is not a great age for sharing. It's not a great age to try to take other people's perspectives. And sometimes at this age, I hear parents saying, well, you have to think about how she's feeling in this moment. They oftentimes can't. So what you're doing is you're playing with them, like things, very open-ended play activities like Play-Doh or puzzles together, and you may reflect what you are thinking or feeling. But you're really just practicing the back and forth action of play and interaction and modeling friendliness and pro-social skills. When you get to age 5 to 9, this is kind of like middle childhood. Our middle childhood kids are viewing friendship through a very concrete and practical lens. For these kids, having a friend is very, very important. It is so important that sometimes kids will put up with not so nice behavior from their friends so that they can be friends with that person. This tends to look like I'm friends with somebody who's nice to me, who does nice things for me. We start to see a lot of pro-social behavior at this time too, because that's how they know how to make friends. I'll be your friend. I want to be your friend, so I'm going to do something nice for you. But we also get this kind of bartering, like I'll be your friend if you play on the monkey bars with me. I won't be your friend if you don't play on the monkey bars with me today. So it gets to be pretty black and white at this age. And you'll see kids sometimes come home and say, well, she's not my friend anymore. It doesn't necessarily mean that they've been mean to each other. Sometimes that statement of she's not my friend anymore means that this kind of one-way bartering has gone maybe not their way. And so reaching out and talking to the teacher is often a really good first step in those cases, because I have met so many great elementary school teachers who are marvelous at helping bridge this really concrete and pragmatic friendship frame when kids' friendships are kind of off the rails. And so they'll get kids together either on the playground or during the classroom, and all of a sudden their friendship is back on track. Now, ages 5 to 9, notice that there's overlap in these ages. This is where you start to see, oh, I'm sorry, this is also in your, how do you support these friendships? In addition to talking to the teachers, you are also, as a parent, really trying to focus on encouraging acts of kindness and sharing. You are modeling as a parent strategies for the give and take of friendship. And at home, these are the times where cooperative games are really great. And as much as those games can involve other kids, that's wonderful, but they don't need to involve other kids. They can be games at home too. And so you've got your classic parachute that requires everybody to hold up a piece and fly it around. You can also get games that require some kind of communication or sharing. There's some really great cooperative board games at this age that I really like. Story Cubes and Feed the Woozle are two that are really hot in my family right now. But if you Google cooperative games, you'll find a whole bunch of them. I'm happy to send out resources too. Competitive games don't go very well at this age. And that's oftentimes because kids at this age are so kind of black and white and pragmatic, and perceive rejection so easily that competitive games go south because now I've lost or she's lost and we are not friends because there's been a winning or losing piece. So keep it cooperative at this age. At age 7 to 12, this is where you're looking at kind of fair weather cooperation. Friendship is really someone who returns a favor. Kids at this age really care about fairness and reciprocity. If you've ever had a tween, you know this to be true. And when you see something that is unfair, the friendship may be completely over. And they don't necessarily reform again at this age. We see a lot of shifting friendships, especially in these tween years. And small friendships groups start to get formed in middle school. We see kind of secret clubs will start, or what we think of as like kind of cliquey behavior. We see a lot of judgmental thoughts going and expressions of kids. And kids at this age, they really worry about fitting in. They really want to be like everyone else. They do not want to stick out. And so they may shy away from friends who they feel like make them stick out. And this is very normal. It's a part of child development, and it's also really uncomfortable because kids can be mean at this age. Your kid can be mean, their kids can be mean, and it doesn't mean that they're mean people, but it does mean that they are trying to figure out how fairness and reciprocity can work in relationships. So how do you manage this? This is hard. Patience is part of it, and child development and brain development is part of it. Some of it you just got to wait out. But at home, you are really focusing on building a foundation of mutual respect with your kid. And so you're talking to them kindly. You were starting to ask them deeper questions about their thoughts. You're starting to maybe probe into what they think is fair and what they think is unfair. And what makes them unique and stand out, and really respecting and honoring their interests. Uh, Shared activities during this time are and genuine interest in the things that your kids really like are critical. So if your kid's really into soccer and you're not, guess what? You're getting into soccer. And you should show some pretty genuine interest if that's their passion. Find something you care about in their activities, even if they're interested in something that's kind of off the wall. Try to find something in there that you can express interest about and spend some time doing it. I love parents who will spend some time doing mango with their kids or video games with their kids. And they're like, no, that's not my thing. I'm an athlete. Um, that's okay. Doesn't need to be your thing. But you know what is your thing? Your kid. Your kid is your thing. As kids get a little bit older, um, at age 8 to 15, we're starting to merge from our tween years. Our relationships are starting to get a little more mature, and a friendship is really about someone you can tell things to that you wouldn't tell anyone else, including your parents. They're not necessarily keeping secrets, although they are functionally keeping secrets. They are telling their friends things and disclosing things as a friendship activity. It's no longer about keeping score at this age. Thank goodness they start to genuinely care for that friend, which is why I say you got to kind of start to wait things out. They want their friends to have similar interests and viewpoints. If a friend sees something differently than they do, they still may take it as a betrayal. It kind of hurts at this age to find out that your friend thinks differently than you. And they may start to shift towards friendship groups that are really focused on mutual trust, mutual activities. Um, if a friendship ends, it is often because of a violation of trust. And girls, more than boys, are going to have best friends. But boys tend to run in packs at this age. Girls tend to have more dyadic, individualized relationships. Regardless, both ages, both boys and girls kind of want to do everything together. They may be hurt if the group or the best friend chooses to do something with someone else or not invite you to it. And at this age, your job is to get to know your kids' friends. Make those kids welcome in your home. Show them that you understand how important those friendships are. Get to know them and really show that authentic interest in those other kids, not just your kid. And as things progress, this kind of starts around 12, and we see this more in high school. And as kids are getting older and older, they become better able to accept and appreciate differences between themselves and their friends. And I got to say, this is a task that all of us continue to work on throughout our adult lives. And our kids are at this age not as possessive. They're more willing to and able to share friends. We have a high value on emotional closeness, and we're emphasizing trust and support and wanting to remain close over time. At this age, oh, you want to continue to do all the stuff that you've done in the past. And um, there's a concept called potted plant parenting, where oftentimes our teenagers don't really want us to give them advice. Maybe some of you have experienced this before. They reject our advice. They want to do things on their own. That is part of the autonomy that we've been developing in them. We have to remember that sheer proximity, just being in the room with them, can really actually confer benefit over and above feelings of closeness or connectedness. So it's really cool if you get along well with each other, but if you don't, being uneasily present is better for your teenager than your physical absence. And this can look like sometimes blending into the background like a potted plant, and it can feel really weird. It is better to be with you than separate. What do we do when things go awry? Well, peer pressure is like one of those tough things that when things start to go south in relationships, we think of first. And the thing about peer pressure is it can go both ways. You can get positive peer pressure. A kid who forms friendships with a lot of really bright kids and so studying really hard because that's what the friends are doing. You also get negative peer pressure, and kids who are engaging in risky behavior. And kids every day are faced with both types of peer pressure to do things, to not do things, and to be part of the crowd or not. And the extent to which they're able to withstand that peer pressure is going to diminish over time. Remember, peer pressure goes up as they get older, and parent pressure goes down. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to build self-compassion and self-confidence in themselves early on. If they're happy with who they are and their choices and their values, they are more confident with their choices and less likely to be influenced by other people. We want to be able to talk to our kids and keep those lines of communication open. So if things start to go south with a friend, that they feel like they can come to us without us judging them or without it being unsafe. We also want to suggest ways to say no and practice those. Like, no, I don't like this. I don't like the way that it makes me smell. And we'll show some activities for that in a little bit. Give teens a way out. If they go to a party, give them a way that they can text you and say, hey, I need a ride home without actually saying the words, I need a ride home. We also want to encourage a wide social network. So if you start to see a kid who is being maybe a little too comfortable with a group of kids that you don't feel great about, expand their social network, expand their opportunities to find friends in a wide variety of places. One of the biggest predictors of friendship is proximity. And the more you are around a group of kids, the more likely you are to be friends with them. And talk to them about behavior that you don't like and what your limits are. How do you do that? Conversation starters are helpful. Well, what are you and your friends up to these days? Are you doing anything fun? Are some of your friends dating? You can also give them scenarios like, how would you manage it with a friend who's asking you to do something you don't feel comfortable with? How do you deal with pressure from someone that you're dating or seeing? And it's okay to share examples. Now, if you're a parent of a teenager, you may know that they don't want to talk to you face to face. That is normal. The car is one of the best places to have these types of conversation starters. We also want to give them actions and talking points and concretely practice this with them. You have the power to choose what kind of friendships and relationships you want. If you have a friend or a romantic partner who's comfortable with something, doesn't mean that you have to be. You can be yourself. It's never okay to pressure or threaten someone. And trust yourself and follow your gut so that you feel respected and safe and comfortable. And sharing the words that they can say to themselves when they're not in a panicky moment can be really helpful when they are in a panicky moment. We also see as kids are getting older, especially in those tween years and into high school, these frenemies and toxic relationships develop. We want to teach what a frenemy is. So they put people down, they manipulate each other, they leave them out. This might happen both face to face and on social media. And as much as we can, we want to recognize a frenemy for what it is. If you find one, And it'd be ideal to avoid them, but we've all had frenemies in our lives. I know I have. It is normal to stumble into that. If you find that you have one, you have three options. You can change those relationships as much as you can. You can end it, or you can find new friends. Um, and your child is going to have to be the one who picks that. And I will say it is best not to confront other young people or call their parents, because that can sometimes make the frenemy situation worse and lead to bullying. Enlist your school team if you are really struggling to manage the frenemies and toxic relationships, because they can really be helpful in helping manage some of the dynamics and sometimes adjust routines and schedules so that, oh, I'm sorry, I should have muted this. My children are FaceTiming me, and I'm going to talk to them later. Okay. We also want to make sure that we're trying to avoid criticizing friends. We're trying to help kids reflect on what might be happening. And so sometimes we have a kid who might tell us that bullying is happening. When we see that, we need to listen to them and offer support. But what we don't want to do is say, why are you letting these people get to you? Or what have you done to cause people to treat you this way? Instead, we want to praise them for coming to us for help. It took a lot of courage for you to tell you this, for you to tell me this. I know this is hard for you. I'm here to listen. And then ask them how you would like to handle this, how they would like you to help with them. And ask who at school has their back, because that is going to be an ally for them. When you see bullying happening, we want to make sure that we're keeping records and screenshots. That can be really helpful. It is really important to moderate and monitor social media, because that is oftentimes where the bullying is occurring. And if you're seeing it, work with your school. And also know that if it's happening outside of school, sometimes you do have to work with law enforcement in order to make it stop. The best way, though, to prevent bullying is to promote upstander or ally behavior. This is to help kids think about how they might stand up for what's right if they see bullying happening to another person. The kid who is being bullied often doesn't have a lot of power in the situation, but their friends do. So these are other conversation starters that you might do in that car ride. So let's say a good friend of your child, let's say a good friend wants to break up with his girlfriend. He's going to have another friend do it for him. What would you do? Or a classmate is telling people that she's the boss of her boyfriend. That's the way it should be. What would you do? What would you say? Practice these things so that they can recognize bullying behavior in other people, and that they can stand up in allyship uh, for the kid who is being bullied. That has been shown to decrease not just individual bullying, but a culture of bullying in a school. Relationships and romance. Whew. So it begins earlier than you think. It's a major developmental milestone, and it is normal. At 9 to 11 years, you may get a kid who's starting to show more independence and more interest in friends, and might start to say, I have a crush. 10 to 14 years, your kid might start, but it's not necessarily attraction at that age. It's like, I like this person. I know that liking people is a thing. 10 to 14, they start feeling feelings of attraction to other people. And 15 to 19, this is where romantic relationships actually become a central task of child development, which oftentimes is a little anxiety provoking for parents, and it's normal. We don't want to stop typical teen development, but we do want to help them navigate it. So we have to think about these conversation starters, and we do this early. What do you think is important in a relationship? How do you want to be treated? What kind of things show you that someone truly loves you? How would you show other people that you love and care for them? And have those deep conversations with your kids starting at a younger age than you think. We start them at about 5 or 6, because they evolve and they deepen over time. And the more you have them, the more that you're also able to share your family values for how to have respectful relationships. And Teen dating violence is far more common than any of us want to admit. 1 in 12 high school students have experienced physical dating violence, and 1 in 12 have experienced sexual dating violence. It's really scary. So we have to teach red flags and green flags. If you think that you're seeing teen dating violence or violence in your relationship, 2 resources I will share. One is loveisrespect.org. And the National Domestic Violence Hotline can be very helpful. That number is on the screen. In Rochester, the Willow 24-hour hotline is open to teens, parents, anyone who may be experiencing interpersonal violence or dating violence. We need to be teaching our warning signs of what unhealthy or abusive relationships look like. And this might look like a kid who's checking phones or messages or social media without your permission, or a partner who's using insults, intimidation, humiliation, lots of jealousy or insecurity, isolation from friends and family. Like they don't want your child to spend time with your family. Unwanted sexual contact, explosive temper, abusing alcohol or other drugs, even leaving unwanted things like gifts or flowers. When your child has clearly said, I'm not interested, that is a warning sign of a potentially abusive relationship. And of course, threatening or causing physical violence or scratches or bruises on your child. And what do you do if you see that? It's so scary. It can be tempting to say, no, that's not happening to my child. It's not happening to you. It can't be that bad. Accept what your child is telling you at face value. And talk about the behaviors. Talk about these behaviors that you're seeing in that partner that is alarming, but not the person. Because if you talk about the character of that person, you risk alienating your teen and finding a Romeo and Juliet situation. Talk about the behaviors that are concerning and decide on the next steps together to keep your child safe. One of the things I like to use are red flags and green flags. So green flags are like the go that we can think of as healthy behaviors. Red flags are things that might be a precursor to abuse. And so this is a green flag activity in a healthy relationship check-in. Green flags might be they're hanging out with friends. Is it a red flag or a green flag? Are they hanging out with their friends without their partner? That's a green flag. It's good to have some independence. Can they play sports or be part of activities or hobbies they enjoy freely? Green flag. Do they have shared values? Are they a good match with you? Green flag. And you can do this in your car rides, or you can identify what other kids are doing that are green flags, or what your child's partner is doing that are green flags that you like. Be like, oh, that's a green flag. I like that. That can help communicate your relationship values and healthy relationships in a really simple way. Sometimes kids struggle with concrete behaviors and they need something a little more silly. And I love teenagers because they are kids who like to play, but in larger bodies. So I use tacos sometimes to be goofy. So let's think about our love language. Think about this yourself at home and about whether it's a green flag or a red flag. So if you love me, you'd have a taco. Red flag. I should do this with red flags. I've got a red and a green pen. You're more beautiful than a taco. Green flag. Oh, but hey, I love that tortilla. You know, I only like guys with soft shells. That's a red flag. I'll do 2 more. And you guys will have these slides afterwards. So word of affirmation, a love language is quality time for some people. All right, you cancel your Tuesday plans. Let's make tacos together. Versus, when can we make tacos together? Green flag. So you can go through the love language with tacos and red flag, green flag them. And then they become kind of a running joke with your kid, but also a really nice, low stress way to talk about healthy relationships and healthy behaviors. All right. So let's bring it back home. In all of this, the skill of parenting is how to have difficult conversations. And as kids grow and develop relationships with each other, their relationships change with you, and we have to have conversations that might be embarrassing or upsetting or controversial for your child or you. It is helpful if you can think about these topics before your child asks and have them in low affect situations and raise them before your kids ask. If you can't, it's best to address them with your child and collaborate with them on finding solutions. Car rides are a great way to do this because they tend to be lower pressure or going for long walks. It is best to avoid having difficult conversations over text because you can't see each other's face or responses or read your body language, and it's easy to ignore or it's easy to overreact, and you aren't in physical proximity to be able to support your child. One of the take-home points of negotiating with your kid about behaviors, about limits, about autonomy is from the business world. People do business with those that they know, they like, and they trust. So your job as a parent is to show that you like your kid. And if you don't, you got to work on that and genuinely engage with their interests. Your job is to really listen to your kid. You have to turn off your phone or your TV, find opportunities where there's natural conversation, turn your body towards them, and validate their perspectives and feelings, even if you don't agree with them. You can say, I understand why you might feel that way. Let's talk about ways that maybe we can change our behavior instead of saying, no, that is not right. That is not how someone in my family would react. Say, I understand why you feel frustrated. And maybe it's not a great idea to explode in anger when you're feeling that way. If you are going to give advice, it is really tempting as a parent to just give it because you know it. You've walked it sometimes. Ask their permission. Hey, can I give you some pointers here? You can even ask and say, hey, like, what do you want here? Do you want me to listen to you or do you want me to offer thoughts and suggestions? Focus also on what you can control and what you can't, because you can't, at the end of the day, control your kid. What you can control is offering validation, communicating acceptance of your child, and asking them and sharing that you are a safe space. So to do that, one of the first things you need to do is to take a moment and calm down and gather your thoughts. And if you need to do that, that's okay. It's okay to set an appointment to talk about challenging situations. And if you don't know how to advise them, tell them that. Kids can see through us so well, and offer to work with them, figure out what they need to know together. Guide your child with a problem-solving approach so that they can also, instead of us solving all their problems, they can learn to find solutions or make decisions themselves, become increasingly autonomous human beings, and let them know how you see the situation. Rather than telling you what to do, let them know how you see it, and then plan for safety. That is often my biggest boundary. And then critically, you got to stay connected with your kids. You have to be present. You have to welcome their friends in your home. You have to, like, family meals are hard to do, but they have been shown to really help prevent risky behaviors. And if you can't do that, find other periods of time that are available in the day to be present and engaged with them during the mundanity of life, even if you're just a potted plant or washing the dishes together, and express appreciation of your kid and give them love. And just because you're not doing anything at that moment in time, your proximity, if nothing else, is enough. Your job is to love your kid no matter what. And I'm going to show you what that does. When we have kids who have been rejected by their parents, they experience high levels of rejection from their kids compared to low or moderate amounts of rejection. We see that they are at 8 times the risk for lifetime suicide attempts or HIV infections or illegal drug use. The biggest thing that scares us as parents is my child going to be happy and healthy and well? When we reject our children and show rejecting behaviors that are outward and overt, we are actually harming them. And Love and acceptance can be so protective when we see a family that accepts their child as they are, that accepts their emotions, that accepts them as the people that are presenting to us. We find that they believe they can be happy adults, that they want to be parents, but also critically, that they have 8 times less risk of lifetime suicide attempts, 4 times less risk of HIV infection, 4 times less risk of illegal drug use. And the quote that I love to share here is that you can vaccinate your kids against risk with love and acceptance. How powerful is that? Sometimes you need additional help. And these are my last couple slides. But how do you know you need additional help? It's when you have difficulty with or conflict that's daily, it's chronic or severe, it's happening at school with home and friends, and it's really becoming a big problem. And it's lasting for 2 weeks or more. When a teen or a kid is or a family is living life around a problem and not with a problem. When your concerns are staying the same or they're worsening, even if you've made some changes, you've adjusted how you're responding, you've gotten them engaged or active, and you're still seeing the same or things are getting worse. And if it's causing your family or child significant distress, this is when you might need to speak to a professional. And frankly, it's better to ask for help and not need it than not ask at all. We see many kids at our outpatient clinic who come to us for a couple sessions. And then they say, you know what, things are a lot better. And that is so good. And sometimes that's because they've spoken to a professional, and sometimes that's because they've made changes at home. Sometimes it's a combination of both. And sometimes they need more care than a couple sessions, and that's okay too. But it's better to ask for help and not need it than to not ask. If your child needs support, there are resources in the Greater Rochester area. If your child is in a crisis, there's a couple options. 211 Lifeline will connect you to crisis hotlines and PIC teams and mobile crisis teams that can come to your home and support you in the moment. We also have recently opened a really cool pediatric mental health urgent care clinic called Brighter Days. It's on Crittenden down at University of Rochester. That is a place where kids and families can go. It's open 12 to 7, 7 days a week, and receive a mental health urgent care evaluation right there and then. We do have the ability to admit kids to inpatient if that is needed. We also have the ability to link kids to further care at both the urgent care and in outpatient clinics if that's needed. If your child needs a hold or a medication intervention, the emergency room is still the right place to go. If you call 911, the ambulance is going to transport you to the emergency room, and CPAP is still an option, but we are really promoting Brighter Days as a really trauma-informed, child-friendly environment when kids are in a mental health crisis. We also have community options if kids need help and they're not in crisis, and we will make sure to send this around. For those of you who have kids in Brighton Middle School or Brighton High School, we do have a satellite clinic in both of those locations, and we love working with your school team. If you have questions about that, please feel free to ask your counselor or your administrators, and we're happy to talk. There's some great books. Couple that I love are here. I mentioned Good Enough Parenting. I'm actually in a Good Enough Moms dinner club, and we talk about how we are just holding it together, and that's okay. How to Talk So Teens Will Listen and Listen So Teens Will Talk is a great one too. Parenting Kids and Teens with Love and Logic. And then Giving Kids Roots and Wings by Ken Ginsberg is lovely. And anything by Lisa D'Amour is fabulous. I just want to say thank you to Brighton for asking me to join today. Thank you to parents for taking your time away from your kids to listen. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to either me or to the school team. We're here for you.
Well,
Thank you.
Dr. Heatley, that was tremendous. And I know that you can't see me. Somewhere along the line, my video just said, poof, I'm not going to be showing you anymore. But I've been listening and been here the whole time. And I just wanted to see if anybody had any questions. It's not that large of a group, so you could just unmute and ask. A couple of thank yous in here in the chat, and certainly Brighter Days is great. I would have to agree. In this presentation, once we get through the questions, it will be posted on our district YouTube channel. So any questions?
All right.
No,
I'm just going to jump in. It's Deanna Spagnola from District Office. I'm just going to say another thank you to Dr. Heatley, but also I want to give a big shout out to Mrs. Paddock for her work and effort behind the scenes and all those that were involved to help bring this together. Thank you, Betsy, so very much.
Oh, you're welcome. And I look forward to continuing with this. I'll be working with Caitlin Feeney now that she is back from her maternity leave, and with Deanna. And we hope to continue this series going into the next school year as well. So thank you so much for being here. And again, thanks, Dr. Heatley, for everything. We are so grateful to you for all that you do.
Thank you to you guys as well. You are a wonderful district to partner with, and I'm always pleased to be here.
Great. Well, thanks. And everybody, I hope you have a wonderful evening, okay? Thank you.
Take care, everyone.